What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy NBA Tonight with me, Vince Miracle, and my co-host, the one and only Aaron Bruski. AB, it has been now 4 episodes, if you include today, that we've been doing Fantasy NBA Tonight. How are you feeling on this awesome Friday?
Well, not as good as you are. I mean, you announce your own name first. I'm like just a little sideshow here. So
People vote for me.
I think I'm not feeling as good as Vince Miracle is tonight.
I just feel good because of what happened on Thursday's show when people were actually voting for me to who would win between you and I. And I just feel good. I'm just feeling good going into a great weekend.
Well, as I told everybody that was listening, I said, make Vince feel good because this is the only time this year he's going to feel good.
We'll see who'll be serving that steak dinner at the end of the year.
Ain't going to be me. And I definitely ain't serving it. That's not a part of the bet.
All right, guys, welcome to Fantasy NBA Tonight, live again with Aaron Bruski and myself, Vince Miracle. And what we like to do on the show is answer all of your fantasy basketball questions. So what we'll do is we'll monitor the chat room, and no matter the size of your league and no matter what type of league you're in, we are here and we are ready to answer all of your questions. And AB, before we start getting into the questions, we have seen now a week's worth of preseason. What are some of your biggest takeaways, and who have been some of those standout players to you?
Biggest takeaways is that I hate the preseason. No, I don't. There was a time when I used to get carried away a little bit with the preseason. I just can't do it anymore. I don't know that we have individual winners or losers as much as there's players that have kind of, like in Denver, you could see that the bigs can play with each other. You start to see a little bit of the Miami offense tonight start to kick in, and some of that up-tempo ball start to kick in. But no, I'm mostly focused on the numbers that we stand by in July, August, September, and trying to determine if any of those numbers are off. I don't know. Maybe it just seems like an uneventful preseason to me. I don't know. I'm not moved by this preseason, as you can tell.
What about a guy like D'Angelo Russell, who has been blowing it up over the Lakers' last 3 games? I mean, just last night against the Sacramento Kings, 31 points, 11 assists. Has he started? I mean, I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but for anybody who hasn't joined the show yet, and this is their very first time, first off, welcome. But give them your thoughts on D'Angelo Russell. What are your projections from him? Are they starting to rise now because of his preseason play?
They were pretty high to begin with, and that's kind of the type of a thing that we're seeing in this preseason is little subtle cues that a player is either ready to take the next step or has taken the next step. And D'Angelo Russell is definitely one of those players that is going to take the next step. He has that kind of snap to his game and the athleticism that you could tell he's going to be, breaking fools off left and right, and it's going to result in a lot of fantasy statistics. I don't see a big downside to drafting him. I don't think that the Lakers are going to go away from him. I don't think that he's going to disappear. I don't think that Luke Walton is going to try to hold him back. If anything, I think Luke Walton's going to try to instill confidence in him and push him to be more productive. And so when you put all of that together, I think he has the capability of really being a solid top 40 pick, and that's probably what it's going to cost you to get him as a top 40, 50 pick. And yeah, the profit margin there might be debatable. You might be talking about maybe getting a round of value on that and probably being happy with that. But in what you look for in these players is, do they have this kind of what if gear that you can't project for, but what if he takes 3 steps forward instead of 1 step forward? And I think that he has that what if gear where you could be talking about a top 25 season.
Again, guys, we're answering all of your fantasy questions here tonight on Fantasy NBA Tonight live with Aaron Bruski and myself, Vince Miracle. So I'm monitoring the chat board. So anytime you guys have a question, we'll stop everything that we're doing just for you, so your question gets answered here on this show. And AB, before we start getting these questions, I want to get some of these topics that I personally have been having questions with, and I would love to get your insight on, because we talk every day, but these are some questions that I haven't even got to ask you yet. Like, for example, J.R. Smith signing I believe it was a 4-year, $54 million deal. He got maxed out. And what are we supposed to be expecting from J.R. Smith? Can he be consistent? Can he bring what he brought last season?
I would be shocked if he didn't. I mean, this is a guy who used to be known for his instability, and I'm gonna just type something up here real quick because I want to look at something that we looked at when we did the free agency shows and free agency predictions and what guys we're going to end up getting. And I will scroll through. I will actually do two things at once here and try to see if we actually got that right. But I think we had him for $15 million a year for 3 years, which is more or less what he got. He got a 3-year deal, all 3 years guaranteed. There's a 4th year on the deal. It's a total of $57 million. The first 3 at $45 million are guaranteed. This was the stupidest holdout slash, and you can't even really put it on J.R. Smith. He's not the one holding out. The one who's holding out are the Cavs, who essentially wanted to make somebody else offer him that money. And even if it was his agent telling a GM, hey, you got to do me this favor. We know you're not taking him. He's staying here, but we got to get somebody to offer him something. Otherwise, the Cavs aren't going to offer him what he wants or what he deserves, and we don't want to have to go shopping. And that's what's played out over the summer. He's there. His game is completely stable. I don't think that he's going to fall off the wagon, so to speak. I think he's still got a lot to prove to himself and in the NBA. So I think he's going to be a top 100 guy, top 120 guy. And you're not going to see a lot of fluctuation in his production level. Yes, he'll shoot well one night and not well the next, but over the month and over the next month after that and over the next month after that, I don't think you're going to see a lot of variance.
All right, AB, the question started rolling in. That's why I wanted to get your thoughts on J.R. Smith early on, because the viewership's starting to come up here now. So again, guys, for those who are just now joining us, because I see that the viewership actually jumped up a little bit, all you have to do is ask your questions here in the chat, and we'll answer them live for you here on the show with Fantasy Sports Writer Award winner, I believe in 2015.
When you say your name, it's all clean and well done, and then you say my name and my award, and it's just like crap.
I'm just trying to hype you up even more, AB. You said you weren't feeling that great on this Friday, or at least not as good as me. And I just wanted to. I'm trying to pump you up.
Hey, I'm feeling good. It's the end of the night. There's a lot. I'm gonna have to be up real late because we're doing a Bruski 150 update. Auction rankings are coming out. Points league and players to reach for are all on my plate, all on my radar. So I'll be up late trying to get that out to you guys so you have that for your weekend drafts. And so yeah, not sleeping these days, but I'm good.
Good. Let's get to these questions. First question says, so DeMarcus Cousins or KAT as the first center off the board with Boogie in the new system? So I'm guessing between the two.
Wait, run that by me one more time.
So DeMarcus Cousins or Karl Anthony Towns as the first center off the board with Boogie in the new system. I think this is hands down Karl Anthony Towns in this question.
That's Karl Anthony Towns. It's not close. It's nothing against DeMarcus Cousins, but Karl Anthony Towns has top overall pick potential. So Cousins doesn't have that. He probably will never have that. And that's not a knock to Boogie Cousins' game. I mean, I think Boogie could end up going 35-15 if he really wanted to. And it's going to be Cat all the way. So, yeah, not even close. Cat. Cat.
So we were just...
Yeah.
I don't know why that's so funny to me. Stop. Next question. We just got done talking about J.R. Smith, but the question here is, with J.R. Smith re-signing with the Cavs, where does he sit in the draft? I think you said he's in the 100 to 120 range.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot to draft him because in your later picks, I think you probably want to shoot for somebody with more upside. But, you get into that 8th pick, that 9th pick, and you're looking for somebody to solidify your three-point shooting. That's going to be somebody that you don't want to make a mistake on. And so he really fits well right there.
Next question here is, what are some deep league sleepers you like? 150 pickish.
We got, do we have time? Deep league sleepers. Deep
right now, all right?
League. Yeah, 30 deep. We're getting to about pick 100, pick 120. That's not what this question is looking for. What they're looking for is somebody that's going to be available in the top 150, top 200 picks of their draft. That's going to go gangbusters. I'll give you guys a name, Andre Roberson. I like him to finish with a top 100 to top 125 value. That makes him somebody that you could look at in a standard league, let alone a deep league. But he's not going to get drafted in standard league, folks. And so he'll probably be available in these deeper leagues. And in deeper leagues, if your player pool is going, say, 200 players deep, if you can get a top 125 guy, that's somebody that's going to be in your lineup quite frequently. So I think Andre Roberson's not a guy who I've been able to bring up. Ish Smith probably will get overdrafted, or at least will not be a sleeper. Who else? Let's throw some names out here. Justin Hamilton. Justin Hamilton is going to be undrafted in almost any format, and I have him finishing in the top 120 to 140 in 9 and 8 cat leagues respectively. So listeners that are doing the yeoman's work, staying up late on Friday night, and particularly out on the East Coast or maybe around the world, you're getting the straight dope tonight. Justin Hamilton, take it to the bank. And here's why. Because first of all, his game is very fantasy friendly. And when he had an opportunity for the Wolves during the fantasy playoffs 2 years ago, I mean, we were all over that. And he came out gangbusters. He can hit a three. He can get you some steals and blocks. He rebounds well. He shoots efficiently. Everything's in the right spot for him. He had hit his head at the worst possible time. I mean, he hit his head hard, and he was basically knocked out for the rest of the year. So he never really got a chance to get that buzz and really cash in for owners. And then he went overseas, and now he's back. And now he plays in Brooklyn, where the depth is a problem. And yes, Brook Lopez has managed to stay healthy. And when he stays healthy, he plays a lot of games. But they just are a very shallow team. I think they're going to find a spot for a guy like Justin Hamilton throughout the course of the year. I think that he's going to take 25, 30 minutes per game to be in the top 150. And I think that's where he's going to end up. So, yeah, Justin Hamilton, take it to the bank.
I have a player that I actually want to ask you about because I feel that he can potentially be in that range. But again, I could be wrong. So I want to ask you, the fantasy expert here, AB, what about a guy like Justin Anderson in Dallas? What are you expecting from him this season?
Well, we're just going to go right to the heart of all my favorites, aren't we? Justin Anderson is like Jay Crowder reincarnate. And it's funny how this works. Jay Crowder didn't have the skills that Justin Anderson had, coming into the league. And playing under Carlisle and then going to Stevens, Crowder has been able to develop a three-point shot, a little bit of a dribble game. Defensively, he's a monster, and he's putting together this fantasy-friendly, fiercely fantasy-friendly game. And now you see Justin Anderson, who's got a shooting guard stat set, likes to shoot the three, but he's really big and he's athletic and he can move, and he's the type of player that, you saw him get more minutes in the playoffs, and he's the type of player that's going to be hard to pull off the court. And yeah, there might be problems with not getting enough touches early on, and the early part of his season might be, say, top 150-ish. But I think as the season goes on, he could end up being this top 75 guy. And when you're looking for stashes, you're looking for two things. One, can they perform at a late round floor so you can plug them in as some sort of valuable asset during a 4-game week or even during a 3-game week if your team's all banged up? Are they going to be able to just hold their own for a little bit? And then after that, do they have the upside? And you don't want to hold Aaron Gordon all last year and only get top 100 upside for like 4 weeks of the season. That really kills your team holding that roster spot. But now if Aaron Gordon had given you top 130 value while he was on the floor early in the year, then you could have held him, dealt with it, and then hopefully he does better than that down the stretch. So I think Justin Anderson is going to be that guy who's got top 75 value towards the end of the year. And then, of course, if anything goes crazy in Dallas and they start stripping it down and going for the tanking, which they don't do there, but if Dirk gets hurt or somebody else gets hurt, they're only a couple players away from really unleashing some of these young guys. Then you're looking at a guy who's got some a top 75 potential that's probable, rather than, say, like a 33% chance of happening.
Again, guys, this is Fantasy NBA Tonight live with Aaron Bruski and myself, Vince Miracle. And I want to let everyone know that this is a Hoop Dash Ball presentation, and we are here to answer all of your fantasy basketball questions. questions, no matter the size, no matter the type of the league. We are here to give you all of that advice. And hey guys, while you're in the chat and you guys are asking your questions, do us a huge favor and hit that thumbs up button so we do know that you like this video. And for more videos later on down the road, like Fantasy NBA Today with myself and Dan Besbris and the revolving guests that we have, and on the night shows, we're starting next week. We'll have some more of our fantasy experts here from hoop-ball.com joining the show with myself. We want you guys there. Hit subscribe to this YouTube channel. And then also, we are going to be taking Facebook questions later on in the show. So if you have questions and you want to start asking them throughout the day, you can actually ask them on Facebook. Just go on Facebook and look for Hoop Ball, look for the logo, and hit that thumbs up button there as well. All right, AB, we have more questions here, so I want to get to them. It says wow, we're getting into the Bruski 150. People are just putting it out there. So here we go, AB. In the Bruski 150, you have D'Angelo Russell at 76 and 9 cat, but 33 and 8 cat. Are his turnovers really going to hurt him that much?
Yep. I mean, and they're going to be a bad team. They're going to be a young, bad team that runs a lot, and he's going to try to zip a lot of passes into places that make no sense. And unfortunately, he's not going to be good enough to where that gets mitigated. So you're in your top 25 ranks. A lot of those guys also turn the ball over. So the impact of their turnovers, it for whatever reason does not impact them as much. But when you get into the middle sections of the rankings, meaning the top 50 to 100, and then especially after that in the top 100 and beyond, a guy that's, got 3 or 4 turnovers a game, say like a Dennis Schroeder, at some points in time during last season, or guys like mostly Schroeder, 120 in 8 cat and then 180 in 9 cat. Is what you're looking at with that level of turnover. So, yeah, he's going to have that many turnovers, and it will impact him. Now, if you're punting turnovers, obviously you don't care, but that's more or less an 8-cat league. So I think that pretty much explains the ranks.
All right, guys. So I said we were going to be asking a Facebook question later on in the show. And so, AB, I think now would be a great time to do that. And the question is from Nive, and he also wanted to let us know that he is from Israel. So he's going to be watching the show tomorrow when he wakes up. So good morning to you, Nive, and thank you so much for subscribing to not only Hoop Ball, but to this Hoop Ball YouTube channel. His question is this, AB: if I have the chance to pick first, the order in the lottery, what do you think it will be? What do you think will be the best order to pick? I don't like 1 because then only 20 to 21.
I think I understand this question. And if I don't, I apologize. And I got to say, I love our worldwide listeners. We have people all over the world that have bought the draft guide, that have tuned in and tweeted us, and it's just, and we got people worldwide on the staff and writing and everything. It's just kind of cool. It's hard to imagine that this would actually happen, 5-10 years ago. And with Twitter, everything kind of exponentially exploded, and all of a sudden we're in everybody's living rooms, talking to people from around the world. So I just find that phenomenal. And then with respect to his question, I think what he's saying is, where do you want to draft? And so in our big money leagues and places like the National Fantasy Basketball Championship, what they use is a Kentucky Derby draft system. And I actually haven't even checked. I got to check that. I'll check that right now. I'm very excited to see where I will end up drafting in a $2,500 entry fee contest. But the question is, like, where do you want to draft? And so what I did with my KDS rankings is, you get to set the order of what you want. So I picked 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th as my first priorities. And in the Kentucky Derby system, what they do is they pick somebody, and that first pick gets to have their choice of draft selection. So if they said they wanted to be the 7th pick, they get to be the 7th pick. And then they pick another person out of the hat, and then whatever they wanted, assuming it's available, they get that pick. So if that person said, I want to be 9th, then they get the 9th pick. And if the third person they drew out of the hat goes, and they also want a 9th, they're not going to get 9th. They'll take whatever, or they'll get whatever's next on the list. So I put my priorities as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then from there, actually, I can't even remember what I did, but I wanted to avoid the 6, 7, and 8 picks. So I put those last. And it's a little bit of a tricky thing because I don't like drafting on the ends. In a snake draft, I like to be in the middle because that's where the value falls. In this particular first round, though, I just did not like 6, 7, and 8. I feel like 9 is where the value is going to fall. I had a guy like Anthony Davis fall to me at 10 in 30 deep just today. So, and in the first 5 picks, I feel like the first 5 picks are highly defined. That's a tier of its own, and there's no cracking it. And so that's what I did there. I will look and tell you guys after this, when Vince asked me this next question, I'll tell you guys what I got. We'll either be real happy or we won't.
All right, so while he's looking that up, I'll definitely bring up this next question. But again, I want to remind everyone, because it does look like our viewership is going up even a little bit more here, that we are answering all of your fantasy basketball questions here on Fantasy NBA Tonight Live. And all you have to do is leave your question here in the live chat. I'm monitoring it very closely, responding to some of you guys in the chat. And yeah, we'll read it here on the show, and AB will answer it live, and you guys can actually see his reaction. And sometimes if you ask the right question, he'll make one of his funny facial expressions that I just can't wait to see if it happens here on Friday night. The next question is, who are you avoiding like the plague in the top 25?
Wait, what is this about the funny facial expressions? And who am I avoiding like the plague in the top 25?
That's the question.
Well, who's top 25? I'm not avoiding anybody in my top 25. So
I'm guessing like
who's top 25?
I guess whoever's in, you would suggest to be in the top 25 by I guess the big box sites, or where people are suggesting some others can go. Who would you be avoiding like the plague in the top 25? Like for example, I know you brought up one the other night, and that was DeMarcus Cousins. I don't think you said like the plague, but you said you're not going to be touching him.
No, I'm not avoiding DeMarcus Cousins. I'd like to, if I'm sitting in like 11 or 12, especially in an 8-cat league, I'd like to draft DeMarcus. In fact, I have him at 12 in my 8-cat V150. I think, if I'm looking at ADPs here of the top 25 and I want to see who am I trying to avoid, I think Paul Millsap's the name. And you know what? I'll catch a lot of flack for this, and I'm okay with that because Paul Millsap just beat me up last year. Not only did I have Myers Leonard ranked higher than him, I just whiffed on Paul Millsap. And here's why. Paul Millsap has been playing through injuries for years, and I just thought last year was the year that it wasn't going to work. And that wasn't the case. Now he is struggling with a knee injury again this year. I think they're just ramping him up for the beginning of the year. I don't think that this is of particular concern. The therapy that he's getting is something that guys get all the time, and it's essentially to get their knees ready. You look at guys that have done this, and they've all kind of bounced back well. But absent that, setting that aside, I just don't think this is, again, his year. I think that Dwight Howard's not going to be a great fit next to him. I think that he's going to probably protect himself a little bit more being on the outs with the Hawks. And again, I just think that at some point in time, he's got to stop being so durable. So he's the guy, and I know he's being talked about as a first-round pick at sites. His ADP doesn't really reflect that. His ADP is at 22 and 18 in 8 and 9 cat leagues, respectively. And that's a typical Paul Millsap gets no respect type of thing. But to talk about him in the first round, to me, is just nuts, like absolutely nuts. So, yeah, that's the guy I'm avoiding like the plague.
I got guys that I feel are automatically going to be missing games. Like a guy like LeBron James, I'm going to be avoiding him. I mean, they're already talking about days that he's going to be resting, so that kind of worries me. I know you know what you're going to get when he's on the floor. I mean, he's LeBron James, arguably the best player in the world still today. But him, and then also a guy that he's not known for getting injured, but it feels like there could be one coming because he just stays healthy, and that's Damian Lillard. And I don't know if I would say I'm avoiding him like the plague, but I would like to pick somebody else other than Damian Lillard in my top 25. What are your thoughts on two players like that?
Damian Lillard, and who's the other one?
LeBron James.
LeBron, I'm fine. It just depends on what. If you're in a playoff league, I don't think LeBron's somebody that you're going to end up taking. There's just too much chance for rest. And again, this is the argument against playoff leagues. And if you're going to do playoff leagues, that you need to have these playoffs wrap up almost right after the All-Star break, and that's why I don't like them. Or you stagger your prizes and heavily weight the regular season. But then I don't know. I'm a roto guy, and in a roto league, I think that you can roll with LeBron James. I think that he might never be undervalued because of his name, but at the same time, I think that he's going to be just fine in terms of overall value. So I'm not too worried about him.
All right, as I move on to the next question here, it says, during fantasy playoffs, what strategy do you suggest to fully maximize your team? Example, having a stacked team every day? ?
In the fantasy playoffs, to maximize potential, having a stacked team every day. I mean, I think I wish I knew exactly what this questioner was getting at. If they're talking about stacking certain stat categories, or if they're talking about stacking players, I have them send in go ahead and send in a follow-up to that question so I can get a better answer to, because I'm not quite sure what you're getting at with that.
So that question came from Ben Canardo. So Ben, submit another question, and I'll definitely read it on as soon as it pops up to make sure that AB answers it. I mean, the only way that I'm thinking of it is I would definitely, going into playoffs, if you're in a head-to-head league, and I think you've actually said that you were in a previous show earlier this week, I would look at a lot of the players' schedules if you're talking about how to fully maximize it in your drafts, is just look at the schedules and see how many games they have in your time of the playoffs, and that's something that you just have to start scouting early on, or at least in the middle of your season. But again,
I was going to say, and Mike Pandador built a really cool tool, pardon me, that has playoff games mapped out. And so in the Hoopball Premium membership, which is available at the start of the season, you'll be able to enter in your league's playoff weeks, and then you can see how many games does each team have. So you're going to obviously want to target the teams that that fit your schedule. So keep in mind that that's available during the year. And I guess during the draft, I would recommend Basketball Monster, because we don't have that tool in our draft guide. Actually, you know what? Check that. We do. I'm dumb. Schedule Grid is in there. And God, that's sad. I don't even know my own stuff. Now, it actually, when Mike presented it to me, I said, this is flipping awesome, because I've always built some janky version of it, and I've used it to mostly play in season. I'll be honest, like playoff leagues, I do play in them, but I always go with the BPA, best player available. There's too much that can change between now and the end of the year to heavily weight playoff action in your draft decisions. So yes, if you're looking at two equal players, I'll slide over the Basketball Monster column that says playoff games, and I have entered into there the playoff game or playoff weeks for my system, and I might use that as a tiebreaker. But I will tell you this much: I've looked at that number, and I've almost never used it as a tiebreaker. I mean, maybe once or twice. So I'm just a BPA guy, and that's that.
So Ben actually responded and said that's exactly what he was actually asking, is like, do you start looking at players' schedules early on, or when do you start looking at players' schedules to fully maximize their playoff run? He says, yeah, you got it, Vince. That's what I was trying to talk about. And sorry, I can't ask another question because I'm at work. LOL. So thank you for watching us while you're at work and actually joining the chat.
Yeah. I think fantasy killed a lot of productivity in this country. Down with fantasy.
All right, guys, I want to just give another reminder that here on Fantasy NBA Tonight Live, we are answering all of your fantasy basketball questions. No matter the size of the league or the type of league you're in, we are ready to answer all of your questions. All you have to do is leave a question here in the live chat. I'm monitoring it very closely, and we'll answer it here on the show. And also, while you guys are watching, do us a huge favor and hit that thumbs up button. And if you haven't done so yet, show, because we're coming out with shows almost every single day. Actually, it is every single day, Monday through Friday, with Fantasy NBA Today and this show Fantasy NBA Tonight. I think I'm going to kind of throw you for a curveball here before I go into the next question, but because we are live to the public, and this is actually a show that will be for the premium subscribers and also the draft guide purchasers of hoop-ball.com. How do you feel about giving out a promo code for the Hoop Ball Draft Guide to be, percent off?
Nah, I'm not feeling it. Sorry. Am I supposed to be nice with that?
I thought you might be a little bit nicer. The people are here. I set it up. I mean, unless you want to be nicer, I don't know.
All right, 25% off for what? The rest of okay. Until the
end of the show. The end of this show. So we still have about an hour left on this show, but 30 minutes left on this show. For the next 30 minutes, if they use this promo code, they can actually get the Hoop Ball Draft Guide off, or 25% off by using promo code Bruski.
No. Let's go with Fred VanVleet.
Okay, the 31.5 rebound, 5 assist night. Okay, so Fred VanVleet, you use that promo code until the end of the show, and you'll get 25% off of the Hoop Ball Draft Guide until the end of the show. So go do that now. Go open another tab. Go, if you're watching us on your phone, and go get that draft guide today. Fred VanVleet is the name, and that's what you'll use to use the promo code to get 25% off the Hoop Ball Draft Guide. See, AB, we are nice. We are nice on this show, even when it's a Friday night and we're doing the dang show, right?
Well, ain't nobody listening to this show anyway. Let's just make it 50%.
Are we really doing that, or are you just saying it?
Well, let's make it 50%. Why not? When in Rome.
50% off if you use promo code Fred VanVleet until the end of the show tonight. Fred VanVleet is the promo code. 50% off of the Hoop Ball Draft Guide. Man, AB's feeling good on this Friday now.
Well, I will be once this show's over and I can partake in an adult beverage.
All right, next question here is... actually, I kind of think this is a good one, too. It says, why are you not all in on Giannis like most other fantasy analysts are?
I don't know. It's not that I'm not all in. It's that I'm just not – I guess I'm not all in, all right? I'm just not all in. I looked at his numbers. I ran some pretty aggressive scenarios, and the stat set's just not there. So it's hard to get behind that. What we're basically saying, if he's going to make this work for owners drafting him in the first round, remember what we were talking earlier about guys that need to, if they could possibly take 3 steps forward, D'Angelo Russell was the example where, I'm pretty confident he's going to be a top 40, top 50 guy, but he's got that kind of potential where he could just snap into a top 25 guy. That's Giannis in a nutshell. I'm pretty confident he's going to be a top 25, top 20 guy. Now for him to knock, it's not just can he be good, because I'm pretty sure he can be good and very good, but he's got to knock other people out of these slots. It's like that whole thing when you're racing in the playoffs, you got to pass 5 teams to get there. You might be 3 games out, but there's 5 teams between you and the 8th slot. So how are you going to hop 5 teams? How's he going to hop all these other guys? So when you're dealing with a first round pick, he's going to have to take 3 steps forward. I just don't like that kind of odds. I mean, you're almost guaranteed to go underneath, or pardon me, what do they call it? Upside down when your loan's upside down. You're almost upside down to start, even if he's going 3 steps forward, if you're taking with a 10 or 11 pick. So, yeah, I'm just not there, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Next question here is, if you see that another owner is punting a category, do you change your draft to block or just go with your own strategy?
I'm only going to do that if there's just like a throwaway pick. It would have to be an owner that scared me, so to speak, somebody that's good at this. And even then I'm having a hard time adjusting my strategy to fit somebody else's strategy, because I've got my goals that I'm trying to achieve. But let's just say that there's an owner out there that's very highly skilled, and I see them executing a punt strategy, and Dwight Howard is sitting, they're doing a punt free throw, and I don't even know when this would happen, because I don't play head-to-head high-stakes leagues. But I would take a Dwight Howard in like round 10, saying, you know what, I can sacrifice my 10 pick if it's going to piss this guy off and knock him off of his axis. And then you probably got to hold him for 3-4 weeks. I'm okay to do that. I'm not about that at all.
Yeah, you're not a huge fan of the punt strategy, and I think there was a question that came in the other day that we actually weren't able to get to because the show actually ended. But I do want to bring it up, and unfortunately, I actually don't know your name. But they asked, category to punt. What category would that be?
I guess turnovers would be an obvious one because, I mean, everybody's doing it. I don't know. You got your high-end players are going to generate a lot of turnovers anyway. We just had this big old conversation in 30 Deep about this. And so you're in punting turnovers, you probably could win that category here and there against some of the better teams. So obvious one. I want to do it in a build that nobody else is thinking about. And that's what I've seen actually in these high stakes roto contests, believe it or not, is I've seen punt field goal percentage builds. I've seen punt assists builds, and these guys have almost won it. And I want to say somebody accidentally won it with a punt build that might not have been intended. And so I don't know, but I have seen it work to a certain degree. I think you can get us, if you wanted to play the long game, enter a bunch of contests and then go punt field goal percentage build in a roto league and just see if you can get a bunch of second and third places. There might be some value to that if you're so inclined to take that much work on. But yeah, I'm not a big punt guy, and I would pick something that others aren't looking at.
For me, just to answer that question as well, is like I like to punt free throw percentage just because I think that opens the door for you to get a guy like a DeAndre Jordan or an Andre Drummond who are terrible at making free throws but are monsters on the glass, and a guy like DeAndre Jordan can block you some shots. And you know, with Drummond, they're trying to use him offensively as like a number one option. I don't know how well that's working. I don't really like it. He doesn't have that good of a low post game, in my opinion. But I mean, if you're already punting free throws, you can go after some of these big men that are just terrible at free throw shooting, and their value actually goes up for you because of what they can do in other categories. Plus, they're also not turning the ball over as much because they're mainly get it off a lob like a DeAndre Jordan and block shots defensively. So you hear something like that, AB, does that kind of sway you away from turnovers and maybe like focus more on free throws because then the door opens up for you to get guys like a DeAndre Jordan or an Andre Drummond?
No, because here's the thing. Almost always somebody thinks that they can almost execute the same punt strategy as you. You see almost two punt free throw builds in every league, almost even in roto leagues. I just it astounds me when I see players in roto leagues taking Andre Drummond, Dwight Howard, and DeAndre Jordan. It just astounds me. And I don't know. I want to say that the guy accidentally won with a free throw build, but it's so rare. You can't take a one in a roto category and win. And so, yeah, with the punt free throw build, you just are kind of telegraphing your moves. And when do you take Andre Drummond? A lot of guys that do this want to take him early, so they take him in the first round. And then they follow up with like a popular strategy is Andre Drummond and then DeAndre Jordan in round 2. So you can corner the market on the punt strategy and essentially shoo people away. And that is, if I'm going to do it, I'm probably going to, it just is a double-edged sword. You're cutting off a lot of the player pool that would be good for you, and you're opening up a player pool that nobody else wants. But here's where it gets weird. If something happens to one of your guys, you're just screwed. If you had been, punting all year and your free throw percentage is unfixable, you're not going to be able to fix that in a roto league. In a head-to-head league, all doesn't make tremendous sense. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, and punt free throws is definitely the one that I think people see and they're attracted to it. So then all of a sudden your punt strategy is being used by two people in your league.
Next question here is, do you think Chris takes over the starting power forward spot in Phoenix by the end of the season? And this question comes in from Scott.
No. Well, I shouldn't say that outright because Earl Watson is really weird with his lineups. This guy will do anything. So would he give Chris the starting power forward slot there? Yeah, possibly. It as far as would I bet on it? No, not at all. I mean, he had a big game tonight, and that's probably why the question's coming up. Maybe towards the end of the year when the games don't matter if they're tanking, I think he could get the starting spot. But as of right now, it's just not happening.
All right, next question here says, do you think the Raptors will try to use JV more this season after his strong showing in last year's playoffs? I think I think we're going to continue to get these type of questions leading up to a lot of people's drafts and into the season because there's a huge question mark on if JV can ever live up to his potential. But throw it back to you, AB. What are your thoughts on JV, and do you think the Raptors will use him more in the offense this season because of what he was able to do in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think they will use him more in the offense. I think that as he gets another year under his belt, he's going to be a better player. He did look really good in the playoffs, so that's a great sign for him. But the problem with him, as we've all seen, is his consistency. And in the Olympics, he was lost. Something clicks in his game. I think when he struggles defensively, it affects him on the offensive side, and he's also dependent upon his teammates to get him the ball. So when you see that that's not happening, he can really disappear real fast and start to look bad on the court. And it has this little bit of a snowball effect, which is what we saw in the Olympics. I'm worried about his ability to get 30 minutes a game. I think that's what everybody's been waiting for. And now you've got rookie Jacob Poeltl, and then even Baby Nogueira, and the group of Pascal Siakam, Patterson, Sullinger is going to play backup 5 minutes. It's just going to be hard for him to get those minutes, and that's going to be the key to his fantasy value because over the long haul he might struggle a little bit here, he might struggle a little bit there, and I think on a per minute basis he's going to be better offensively. You just know what you're getting from him, and so it's easy to, I guess, take a bet on him. But whether or not he's going to pay off really comes down to him getting 30 minutes a game. So I don't think I'm going to be afraid of drafting him, but I'm also not going to bet a lot of money that he's going to beat his ADP.
All right, guys, I'm going to pause the show once again to remind everyone that this is a hoop-ball.com presentation here on Fantasy NBA Tonight live with Aaron Bruski and myself, Vince Miracle, as we are answering all of your fantasy basketball questions. And all you have to do to get your question in on the show is leave it here in the live chat as I monitor it very closely, and we'll get it on the show. Also, for the next 15 minutes until the show ends, we are actually doing a special right now where you can get 50% off of the Hoop Ball Draft Guide. All you have to do is use promo code Fred VanVleet. And for those who don't know who he is, he just scored 31 points, had 5 rebounds, and 5 assists tonight. So go use him as your promo code Fred VanVleet, and you will get 50% off the Hoop Ball Draft Guide today. Again, 15 minutes until the show ends. As we move on to the next question here, AB, and the question is, if in draft there is a run of point guards and you are left with few options, do you reach for Peyton or Moutier of the world, or pick at the end of the draft?
Oh boy, yeah, I'm not reaching for Peyton, and I'm definitely not reaching for Moutier. Moutier is he had an ankle injury tonight, but it doesn't sound like it's a big deal. And I think Jamal Murray had the same kind of an ankle injury. That's not a big deal. So we're looking at let's look at them one by one. So Moutier, I look at him and I look at Jamal Murray, and I think Jamal Murray is the better player right now. And that's pretty crazy to think about because Moutier, first of all, looked pretty good coming into the league, and then he didn't really develop. A lot of that is the obvious, the shot, but even just the plan with the ball hasn't quite been there. DJ Augustine was the go-to guy down the stretch, and that's kind of spoke volumes about where Moutier was in his development. He's a young kid. I think he's probably 20 right now. He's now coming in, and Jamal Murray's polished, and you see it in his game. And it just, to me, seems like they're going to give Moutier first crack at it, maybe even like 28 minutes a game, 29 minutes a game. and let him kind of either sink or swim. And then with Murray, he's going to probably be right behind him. And at some point in time, I think you're going to see those guys even out in terms of minutes. And it wouldn't surprise me if Murray was playing more minutes by the end of the year. So that is that one. Now, Peyton is a total weird situation because the general manager in Orlando is tied to him at the hip. And that's why good old Scott Skiles was, more or less left. Is the GM in Orlando wanted Elfrid Payton to play, and Skiles is like, he's not ready. And, I'd probably side with Skiles on that. So he just bucked out, and that was that. This GM has made some really controversial moves. The trade for Serge Ibaka was terrible, in my opinion. And it's anybody's guess how long his guys will be given the full run of the yard. And again, you got DJ Augustine, speak of the devil, who can come in and push Peyton. I don't think either of these guys are great picks. So I'm going to say, I don't know who's behind those guys in your draft. When this theoretic point guard run comes up, I would not respond to it. And I don't like responding to runs in general. Don't be reactive in drafts. If there's a run of 5 or 6 players that just got hit, lick your wounds, take your losses, and know that those 5 to 6 owners are not probably going back to the well for whatever position we're talking about, and go hit them somewhere else. So I would go hit them somewhere else, come back, figure out where these guys are all sitting, and go for some low-end point guard, like a stopgap solution, Tim Frazier, Ish Smith. I don't know. I'll get you a name here in a second. But I would not follow up those guys with the 2 that you mentioned.
All right, AB, we were just talking about the draft guide, and I think we actually got a really good question that I think should be addressed here on the show about it. It says, I don't know if this was discussed, but is the draft guide useful throughout this season?
It's useful to the extent that you can kind of get a baseline for, I'd say it's probably useful for the first month or 2, because it's essentially a rest of season list. And after a couple months, you'll see where things have moved and changed, and it might not be applicable anymore. If somebody's playing lights out and you want to kind of get a sense for where they should really be, then I think it probably holds about a month or 2 of applicability.
So is there something that Hoopball uses that will actually give you the in-season stuff that they'd be looking for, the information, the analysis that they're looking for that Hoopball provides?
Yes, my brain. No, we have a in-season product that's going to be measuring rest of season value. So that's definitely something you're going to want to look at. And I always publish a kind of a rest of season Bruski 150. I did it after the All-Star break last year, but I'll probably do it at the halfway point this year. And that you don't want to take these massive snapshots too much in the middle of the year, because frankly, I mean, the Bruski 150 takes, I don't know, 500 hours, 300 hours, some crazy amount of time. And basically, the minute that somebody hoists up the Larry O'Brien trophy, I take about a week off. And then after that week, I'm right on it. And it's a methodical step-by-step process I've gone through every year, and I tweak it and I add to it and all that. That is a massive undertaking. So you can't really do that in the middle of the year and also still be good at being an analyst of basketball or fantasy sports.
As we move on to the next question here, AB, it says, and I think this is one that we've touched on quite a bit in the last 2 episodes, both Wednesday and Thursday. But I mean, for all the new listeners, this is a great time to bring it back up, especially on a Friday. Rookie that will make the biggest impact this year.
I was going to go back to that point guard question. I want to say I'd throw Chris Dunn out there. That would be a better play. Now, he might not be available, but I think he might be available. He's got a 90 ADP in 8 cat leagues and a 138 ADP in 9 cat leagues as of about a week ago. So I would look at Chris Dunn, and I don't have him as highly ranked as everybody else does, but I'd rather take a shot in the dark with Chris Dunn that Ricky Rubio gets traded and Chris Dunn is actually as good as everybody says he is, and rather than go for Elfrid Payton or Emmanuel Mudiay. Okay, so the other question was what? Now I've lost my my train of thought. What was that question?
The rookie that makes the biggest impact this season, and I'm already going to assume it's going to be Dario Saric. Am I correct?
You are absolutely correct. That's for he's not a rookie. It's a little bit of an unfair competition here. He's got lots of experience, and he played in the Olympics and showed that experience when he was one of the better players in the Olympics. He does a little bit of everything. The Sixers are short on playmakers, point guards, however you want to put it. He's going to handle the ball quite a bit. I think he's going to have quite a few assists. He's going to block a shot here and there. He's got good timing for a guy that's not going to wow you with his vertical leap. He can shoot the three. He can obviously score. He'll rebound a little bit. I just think this is a guy that people are sleeping on because they just don't know, A, what he does because he's an overseas player, but B, they just don't know how his stat set's going to translate, and they're not willing to make big predictions about his value. So they'll say that I just don't know where Philly goes for guys that can actually facilitate offense. Once you get Ben Simmons out of the picture, and his camp has been pushing for the fact that he might not play this season. But even if he does come back, you got good 2 to 3 months where Bayless can't even get on the floor right now. They're talking about looking at other point guards. He's an injury machine. I think TJ McConnell and Sergio Rodriguez will hold down that position. How effective they can be in the long run at that position is very debatable. They'll set the table more or less and get out of the way. But a guy like Saric, I think, will draw the other team's best defenders, and he will actually bend the defense. So I think Philly's going to be more likely to go to him. They're not going to go to Robert Covington so much. Nerlens Noel's not really an offensive player. Joel Embiid and Jahlil Okafor largely need to be fed the ball, and I think they will feed them the ball with Saric, using him in multiple ways as a post passer and a high elbow guy. I just think he's going to be all around the ball, and I don't see him playing less than 30 minutes this game. I don't even want to say what my ranking is because A, this is a free broadcast, and B, I think it will scare most of you guys.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to let it be known right now that we are answering all of your fantasy basketball questions here on Fantasy NBA Tonight Live with Aaron Bruski and myself, Vince Miracle. We're running out a little bit of time here, so for the next 8 minutes, I want to remind everyone that promo code Fred Van Vliet will get you 50% off the Hoop Ball Draft Guide. And like he said, this right now is actually a free show for everyone to watch, but going after, I believe, after the first week of the NBA season, when we do our season pass, this show actually only is used for our premium subscribers and Draft Guide purchasers. And I don't think that's really a word, but the people that buy the Draft Guide is what I'm trying to say. So you definitely, if you see this as value, which I don't see why you wouldn't, being able to have a live reaction and have your questions answered live, and of course with Aaron Bruski's analysis, and of course my good looks being on the show, you guys are going to want to have it. So go and purchase that Hoop Ball Draft Guide.
They get to see me shaking my head, like
they do see.
Like they get to see both of us at once, so I can at least balance out the screen a little bit.
Fred, is your promo code for 50% off the Hoop Ball Draft Guide. Get your questions here in on the show.
Can I make like Harry Doyle and just start drinking right now? I'm sorry. Go on.
You guys see what I have to deal with on a daily basis with Aaron? He always is picking on me and makes me laugh. And then I'm supposed to be doing all these promos, and gosh, goodness gracious. Anyways, next question here is from Scott once again. It says, deep league question here, AB. How good can Mozgov be in the Lakers system?
Oh, I feel like I'm like the last of the Mozgovians or something. It's rough out here. And I'm not even saying that I think he's going to be good. And no, I'm not backing the contract. I just think that 2 years ago in the playoffs, he had that kind of athletic, that wow factor where he was big and he could also move a little bit. It seemed like when they were doubling LeBron James, that when he would cut through the lane, that he had some intuition with the way that he did it. So everything was clicking, and then he hurts his knee, and then he falls out of favor in Cleveland. And now when we watched him play the other night against the Kings, he just looked really underconfident. He just didn't look good at all. And it has the potential to be rough if everything snowballs there. Because, I mean, if you're going to buy that contract, if you're the Lakers, why make it the first contract of draft season? A free agency. That is terrible. I mean, you just, A, you made the deal, but B, you put it on blast and made yourself the laughing stock of free agency on the first hour. And what kind of pressure does that put on him in one of the bigger media markets yeah, it's a little bit of a friendly media market compared to like New York or Chicago or something like that, but they'll be all over him in LA if it starts to turn south. And it's also a weird match because I think this team is really built to run, and he's not a running center. So I don't know what was going on with that. I'm not hopeful. I'll say this about his game, though. He is a guy that you used to be able to kind of set it and forget it. If he was going to play 25 minutes, he was going to get you top 100, top 125 value, no questions asked. He just had the same stats every night. And so if he can do that and keep this kind of moving the way that he used to, I think that he can be a valuable low-end center. But drafting him with the expectation that he can be anything in the top 100, I think is over-optimistic.
As we move on to the next question here, it says, which players in the early rounds could you see making a significant jump this year from their current ADP, similar to what Kyle Lowry was able to do last year?
That's a good question. Early rounds. So they got to be drafted in the early rounds, and who is going to make the jump?
Can Paul George become more efficient and make a jump?
No. He's already peaked. The guy is, there's a couple guys. I feel like if I'm going to give away the farm, I might as well do it, I guess, at this hour of night. But then people get to replay the show. I don't know. Hassan Whiteside is a guy that I think is going to make that jump. Nikola Jokic is going to make that jump. Who else is going to make that jump? I think that's it, actually, to be honest. I don't think Kristaps Porzingis is going to make that jump, though he's capable of making that jump. He has some injury concerns of his own, and who knows what's going on up there in New York in management and kind of how that's going to play out for him in his sophomore year. But yeah, those two, Jokic and Whiteside, are the guys. They're going to make a massive move on the rankings, and I don't think the fantasy, whatever you want to call it, world is going to realize how big that jump is.
All right, AB, next question is they are in a 12-team 9-cat league with the 4th pick. Would it be more beneficial to draft all strong guards in the first few rounds or draft a few different positions?
These kind of structured, not what if, but these structured constructs that people say is like, should I match this person with this, or should I match this with that, or should I do this, and this? I'm just so against that way of thinking from a drafting perspective. I think that you've got to keep your strategy as flexible as possible when you go into these drafts. If you go into a draft and you say, I'm going to draft 4 guards early, and the situation presents 4 bad guards to you for that spot, you can't do it. And yeah, there's going to be pockets of value in these drafts. The point guard position runs pretty deep. And at the same time, you can build a counter argument to that point guards are really important, that you shouldn't wait. Certain stats become scarce at certain points in time during the draft, scarcity. And, what's kind of the depth of a given position, all that stuff comes into play. Frankly, without Basketball Monster, and I really got to talk to those guys about a sponsorship or something, because they're just awesome. They're awesome. And they basically measure this out for you in a way that in a draft environment, gosh, heaven forbid you're going to be in an auction draft and have to do this stuff on the fly. But drafts each one is different, and it's hard to prepare for them in this kind of like one size fits all mentality. You're going to see what stats are scarce, what positions still have depth, what does your team need? That's a big one. If you go and win blocks by 500 blocks and some ridiculous number, or you constantly win the blocks category by way too much every week or at the end of the year, you're wasting value. So really, you got to think about this stuff. Guards, I don't know. I've found that centers are pretty scarce, and you definitely want to get a good one. Point guards, it's hard to get assists once the top 20 point guards are off the board. So even though I don't like to, in that range of point guards you see going in, like, say, the top 5 to 15 point guards, I don't like to get caught up in that fight. I'd rather go spend elsewhere than really fight over the difference between a top 5 and a top 15 point guard. But getting shut out of point guards can be a real drag. And then the shooting guard and small forward positions are almost always light, it feels like. And the question is do you just kind of punt on that position as far as once the good guys are off the board? Or are you more thinking, I need to get good guys in these positions that don't have quite as much value? And again, it's all based on who you get and where you get them.
I think one thing that you always bring up when you get the early round questions, and I hear it a lot from you over this past week, is draft best player available within those first 4 rounds, because once you get to those middle rounds, that's when maybe you want to start strategizing how the middle of your roster is going to look. But in those first 4 rounds, you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to get all guards because the guards are there. I'm going to get all centers. You want to get the best player available when you're picking. Is that something that I've picked on correct over this past week?
Yeah, I think so. There's some variations to that, of course. Like, if you got a good center, say you got one of the top centers off the board in the first round, and the second round you have a high-end center available that's equally valued to a point guard or whatever other position. Yeah, go get the other guy. Don't double up on a position. Don't overthink it. In fact, I think we had that scenario in 30 deep. I was looking at Drew Holiday. I'd already had Goran Dragic, and I'm sitting there on Anthony Davis, and I thought, how cool would it be to have 2 high-end point guards and just dominate the assists and points and all these other categories. And then I thought to myself, you know what, I'm getting a little greedy. We'll just take Aaron Gordon in his post-hype year.
This is actually going to be our last fantasy basketball question. There's one more question following this, and I'm really excited to hear what your answer is going to be, and I've actually added a little twist to it. But this is the final fantasy basketball question of the night, and I think you answered it a little bit in this previous question, but here it is, and it says, weakest position or hardest to fill with quality players this year?
Used to be that it was almost always the small forward position. And I don't know why, but this year it seems like it's not. And I think this year it's going to be
point guards.
No. I think it's going to be shooting guards. And I think the shooting guard, there was a good article in Sporting News by Sean Devaney, who wrote about kind of the decline of the shooting guard and how shooting guards are now kind of expected to just stand outside and be 3-and-D guys and things like that. And I think that might be, I haven't really looked too deeply into the kind of like a definitive statement like that about which positions got which, how much value this year. But I think just looking at it, I'm noticing that the shooting guard position isn't quite as fruitful as it's been in past years. And it might have something to do with the fact that they're all getting shoved into the 3 slot because of the 2-point guard offenses. And at the same time, they're being asked to just be 3-and-D guys.
All right, guys, that is our show, but I'm going to end it with this because this is one of my favorite questions that we've ever had on this show, and it's not even fantasy basketball relevant. This is about one of my favorite shows, AB, and they're asking us this. Where did it go? I lost it. 1 second. There it is. The League on FX. Unfortunately, it is now over, but the League on FX, which is primarily football. Do you think there should be an NBA fantasy show on FX covering fantasy baskarball?
That's a layup. Of course there should be. I mean, why wouldn't there be? That show did so much better than anybody ever gave it credit for. I mean, I obviously in the industry, we would, we heard that and we're like, yep, that's, a sign of the times. The industry continues to grow and it's great that there's finally a show, but that thing's going to suck. Like everybody to a person thought that show was going to suck. And they went and they got an all-star cast. Shows. It is. It's a really good show. It's funny. I think people that don't play fantasy really enjoy that show. Everybody that's really into that show, their girlfriends that don't play fantasy, they all like the show. So I think that it's done better than I thought it would. And you see these actors, they've all kind of graduated into better things. So I think that they should do an NBA show, and they should probably put you in it, Vince Miracle. You could be in the show.
Oh, stop. Thank you.
Yeah,
I know.
They should call you and you should be in the show. Yeah,
I can feel
something
the
like that.
Denzel Washington out here. I knew that was actually going to be an easy question, AB. That's why I came up with a little twist, a little follow-up question to that I think is even a little bit more, is a little bit funnier, and also will be a little bit more of a thinker. Out of all the characters that are in the league, who are you most like?
Oh, Rafi, for sure.
No way. Out of all the competitive guys like Nick Kroll and all of them, you're saying you manage your team like Ralphie?
Nah, I'm probably Kroll, unfortunately.
You're the tinker. Are you that guy that does all the ad drops in the middle of the night so that they're on waiver and nobody can pick them up? That's you, AB?
No, I'm probably as ruthless as that. Yeah, I don't know. Well, who are you? Who are you?
I'm definitely Kevin 100%. First off, I have a daughter that makes him automatically like me. I have a girl at home who actually watches this show with me and actually thinks it's funny. And 3, I'm about to have a son who I've actually said his nickname should be Chalupa Batman, but that got vetoed. So I'd say I'm like Kevin. Plus, I'm always so desperate to win the league. I can talk so much crap to everyone in my league, and then sometimes, some way, in the week that I'm talking the most crap to everyone, I lose that week somehow, and I always get disappointed. But at the end of the day, I actually win, and there's no asterisks by my championships. But if I had to say if I meant like anybody, it would either be Peter or it'd be Kevin, and I'm going to roll with Kevin. And that is who I'm most like. And that is also going to be our show today, guys. Thank you for joining us on this Friday edition of Fantasy NBA Tonight, live with Aaron Bruski and myself, Vince Miracle. AB, before signing off, let the fans out there know where they can find you online and what you'll be doing this weekend.
I will be updating the fantasy draft guide. You can find me on Twitter at Aaron, AARONBRUSKI, hoop-ball.com. Lots of updates on the site. This is a big weekend, folks. This is where you kind of finalize a lot of the decisions that you're going to make. If you've got big drafts, you generally schedule them this week. All of the stuff before that was an appetizer. So I think that, this week is the week I'll personally be pushing to put out the best product that we can for you guys.
Go follow him on Twitter, guys, at AARON Bruski, BRUSKI. And I bet you after this show, when we sign off, the Bruski will be having a brewski. Always wanted to do that live on the show, and now I actually get to because we're live and we're together. What's up, baby? You guys can follow me on all social media platforms on at VM Center. And also, do us a huge favor, guys. Hit this thumbs up button here on the video so we know that you actually enjoyed this show. I appreciate everyone for watching, and if you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button. And also, if you want to start asking us questions during the day so they can be answered on the Fantasy NBA Tonight show, go on Facebook, type in Hoopball, and look for the logo and hit that thumbs up button there as well so you can become a Facebook group subscriber there as well and start submitting in all of your questions. Again, for Aaron Bruski, I'm Vince Miracle. Until next time, guys, so long and have a great weekend.